Hi, so I just thought I'd explain a little bit about intra-abdominal pressure, the relationship between the diaphragm and the sitting bones, the pelvic floor, and the transversus abdominis, your deepest abdominal core muscle, to really fully embody and understand how we can teach this and weave it into any yoga or Pilates class to maximize the benefits our students experience during our classes. So remember, we have the diaphragm just underneath the rib cage, forming a dome shape. When you breathe in, the diaphragm contracts and moves down. When the diaphragm contracts and moves down, intra-abdominal pressure is increased in the abdominal cavity and decreased in the thoracic cavity, which is why the air then can come in and fill the lungs. So the diaphragm contracts and moves down, the abdominal contents move down, and then as you exhale, the diaphragm relaxes and moves up. And because the transverse abdominis and the pelvic floor are all attached, if you lift and lengthen through the spine, they also naturally move up on the exhale, which is why it's really important to lift and lengthen and grow the spine tall every time you exhale. To also avoid too much pressure going down into the abdominal region, which can influence pelvic health conditions such as prolapse and stress incontinence and incontinence. The breath coming wide into the sides and the backs of the rib cage, your lateral breath helps to redistribute the intra-abdominal pressure. So by breathing wide into the ribs, the diaphragm's still contracting and moving down, but you're broadening around the ribs. So between the hips and the ribs becomes a wider surface area, which means that there isn't as much downward pressure and that you can start to lift and lengthen and expand, and you can actually reverse excess pressure coming down onto the pelvic region and start to let the pelvic floor breathe. So the other thing that happens when you breathe in and your ribs gently open out to the side, your ischium do the same, your sitting bones. So they're in relationship. So the ribs open, the sitting bones slightly open on your in-breath. So the pelvic floor there should be able to relax and release. And when people are hypertonic in the pelvic floor, that often isn't happening. If you imagine somebody with a bent elbow all the time, they wouldn't understand what it feels like to completely release. So we have to really consciously make the decision to inhale, relax, let the sitting bones open to release. That's your neutral position. And then as you exhale, gently draw in and lift up and lengthen the spine, lifting up all the way. What's also really important is that the ribs are softening down towards the hips. So we often see the rib cage lifting forwards and up. But straight away now I'm disconnected from the connective tissue and the myofascial chains that come up through the center of the body to lift and lengthen around my pelvic floor and my transverse abdominis and my other deep core muscles. So I need to be able to bring my shoulders over my hips. So straight away now I can feel like a dimmer switch switching on because now I'm active in the back chain. And then I can lift and lengthen through the spine and check my ribs are soft. So even if I was back and my ribs were forwards, I'm losing connection. So the ribs soften down. There's a lift from underneath, so I'm growing tall. Shoulders are directly over the hips, so I'm in neutral through the spine. Chin is parallel to the earth and the head wants to be slightly back to encourage this chain all the way through the body. Now you could also encourage a stronger connection by lightly pressing into the thighs and drawing the elbows out to the side. So to get the maximum amount of engagement and lift, you inhale wide into the ribs, and as you do that, visualize your sitting bones gently moving apart to release and relax. As you exhale, the rib cage draws in and down, the sitting bones move closer together, and you lift and lengthen through. Feel the diaphragm lifting, feel the navel lifting up towards the rib cage, lifting and lengthening all the way through the spine. You inhale wide into the ribs, so you're not pressing down and increasing intra-abdominal pressure down into the pelvic floor. And then as you exhale, you're lifting and lengthening all the way through the spine, keeping the alignment through the head, the ears, the shoulders, down into the hips. Keep lengthening and lengthening. And you can bring these key principles into any position, whether you're standing, lying, and there's so many things you can do for opposite forces, like the rooting down to rise up. You can do that in all different kinds of positions. So here's just one principle that I'll be talking about on my fascia stability, fascia for movement courses. But really on my observational workshops, we'll be looking at the pelvis in particular and the tilts and how we can use hands-on assists to modify and to adapt to really help our students understand what's happening in their body and their posture so that they have a functional pelvic health and relationship, which actually starts from the feet and comes all the way up to the head. So again, lots of things you can bring onto your class to help to get the communication going. So there's the same neural supply into the pelvis as there is into the feet, which is why the two are inextricably linked. But if you also look at it anatomically, when you open the feet, the hips open, and vice versa. Knee alignment comes into this. So really looking at posture and how we can give teaching points to help our students connect from their foundation, their hands and their feet, to help what's happening in the rest of the body. And this is shoulder stability, it's serratus, it's the lats, the connective tissue, it's how everything is interlinked in the body. The tongue plays a role. The tongue and the feet are related. So when we can start to bring this into classes and stretch the tongue and roll a ball under the feet, bring in a toe squat, think about what muscles might need releasing in a class. Obturator internus attaches to the pelvic floor. The glutes at the back attach to the pelvic floor. The inner thigh, there's two adductors coming up into the pelvic floor. So we can release those to help the pelvic floor relax and breathe. And then we can do the lifting and lengthening to really draw up and give us support with all the muscles and connective tissue joining in. So it's always about balance. So if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about these connections and how we can incorporate teaching points in a regular class to encourage as healthier pelvic health as possible, as well as general posture and alignment, then please join me for one of my upcoming workshops, or a Pilates or yoga teacher training, because I'll be weaving this all into my teacher trainings as well. And the more we can get into the habit of this from the start of our teaching journey, then the better as we move forwards. So if you've got any questions, as always, please don't hesitate to email and get in touch. I hope to see you all really soon. Thank you. Bye.